Tarlock adjusted his atmospheric regulator as he stepped off the transport. The administrative planetary hub of the Intergalactic Council sprawled before him, a gleaming testament to cooperation among 87 civilizations. Massive structures of impossible geometry punctuated the skyline, each representing a member species' architectural signature. As the newly appointed Varney's ambassador, Tarlock carried himself with practiced dignity. His 8-fingered hands clasped behind his back, dorsal ridges perfectly aligned in formal posture. His species prided themselves on rational thought and scientific excellence. The Varneys had contributed 3 revolutionary improvements to FTL drive technology in the past century alone, which made the rumor he'd heard all the more disturbing. Ambassador Tarlock, a slender figure, approached, moving with the fluid grace characteristic of the Aquari. "I am Kulis, your interspecies cultural liaison. Welcome to Nexus Prime." Tarlock inclined his head in the universal greeting. The journey was acceptable. "My quarters?" "Of course. This way." Kulis led him toward a hovering transport platform. "I understand your previous posting was in the Cygnus diplomatic sector. This central hub is quite different." Tarlock remained silent until they were seated in the transport. Then, unable to contain himself any longer, he turned to Kulis. "I require confirmation of something I heard during my journey. It seems preposterous, but multiple sources claim that humans have been granted council membership." Kulis' facial membranes rippled in what Tarlock recognized as amusement. "Yes, indeed. Earth joined the council approximately 6 standard months ago. Without possessing FTL capabilities?" "That is correct." Tarlock's breathing sacs inflated in agitation. "That cannot be. Council membership requires interstellar civilization status, which necessitates indigenous FTL technology. It's not just tradition, it's the primary qualification." Kulis' membranes rippled again. "Humans are an exception." "An exception?" Tarlock practically spat the word. "For what possible reason? Have they purchased technology from other species? Even that would be a violation of council ethics." "No," Kulis said, too calmly for Tarlock's comfort. "They travel without ships." Tarlock stared at his companion, his tertiary eyelids blinking rapidly in confusion. "You're attempting humor. Aquari humor is notoriously difficult for Varneys to interpret." "I am not," Kulis replied. "Humans don't need ships for interstellar travel." The transport glided to a stop outside a towering residential structure. Tarlock barely noticed, his mind racing through possibilities. "There must be an error in my data files," he finally said. "Or perhaps a translation issue. I will review the official membership documentation." Kulis guided him into the building. "You could do that, or I could show you." Tarlock stopped. "Show me what?" "How humans travel. There's one scheduled to return to Earth in approximately 30 minutes. We could observe unofficially." Tarlock considered the impropriety of spying on another species' activities before he'd even properly presented his credentials. Then again, resolving this bizarre contradiction took precedence. His reputation for meticulous accuracy would be at stake if he referenced incorrect information during his initial council appearance. "Very well," he agreed, "but only for scientific clarification." Kulis smiled in that unsettling way Aquari did, like they knew something you didn't. And Tarlock was beginning to suspect they did. Instead of going to his quarters, they took a different transport to the central diplomatic complex. Kulis led him through a labyrinth of corridors before stopping at an unmarked junction. "The transition room is just ahead," Kulis whispered. "We can observe through the biofield transparency here, but they won't detect us." Tarlock was about to question the ethics of this arrangement when a human emerged from a side passage. She was of average human height, with dark hair pulled back and skin a medium brown tone. She carried nothing except a small personal device strapped to her wrist, dressed in what appeared to be standard council scientific attire. "Dr. Eliana Cruz," Kulis whispered, "quantum specialist from Earth's European Coalition." Tarlock watched as the human entered a small chamber at the end of the corridor. The room contained nothing but a simple platform in the center. Dr. Cruz stepped onto it, tapped at her wrist device, and spoke something Tarlok couldn't hear. And then she vanished in a flash of purple light. Tarlok stumbled backward. What? What just happened? Khalees looked entirely too pleased. She went home. To Earth. That's impossible, Tarlok insisted, his voice rising. Instantaneous matter transportation across interstellar distances violates the most fundamental laws of physics. According to whom? Khalees asked. Tarlok stared. At the empty platform. According to everyone. To every advanced civilization in the galaxy. To science. To your science, Khalees corrected. Not to human science, apparently. I want to see their research facility, Tarlok demanded. Now. Khalees checked their chronometer. I suppose we could. The gravity wave debate should be starting soon. That's always enlightening. The central research facility occupied an entire floating structure adjacent to the council chambers. As they approached, Tarlok could already hear raised voices echoing down the corridors. What's happening? He asked. The daily scientific exchange. Khalees answered with a trace of resignation. You might want to prepare yourself. Nothing could have prepared Tarlok for what he saw when they entered the massive circular chamber. The room was divided into two distinct sides, with a holographic projection of complex equations floating in the center. On one side stood representatives from at least a dozen different species, all gesturing wildly at the projection. On the other side stood 3 humans, looking simultaneously frustrated and amused. You cannot simply dismiss 77 civilizations' unified understanding of gravitational theory, shouted a Meridian physicist, her crystal appendages glowing bright orange with agitation. We're not dismissing it, responded a human with pale skin and a copper-colored facial hair growth. We're saying it's incomplete. Your model works fine for most practical applications, but it fails to account for quantum entanglement effects on gravity. Because there are no such effects, bellowed a Calderoan scientist. Quantum mechanics and gravitational theory are separate domains. Only if you insist on keeping them separate, the human replied calmly. The mathematics is clear once you stop assuming a linear progression of time. The Calderoan scientist made a sound like steam escaping a pressure valve. Time is linear. This is not a philosophical debate. Actually, interjected another human. It's both philosophical and mathematical. Your civilization developed along a particular theoretical path. Ours developed differently. Both work within their frameworks. We're just showing you a framework you haven't considered. Tarlok watched in growing horror as the debate descended further into chaos. Equations morphed in the center of the room, split, recombined, and transformed in ways that made his eyes hurt. How long has this been going on? He asked Khalees. Every day since the humans arrived, Khalees replied. Sometimes twice daily. And they haven't reached a consensus? Not even close. The fundamental assumptions are too different. Tarlok stared at the humans, who seemed remarkably unfazed by the scientific outrage they were causing. But scientific truth isn't subjective. There can't be two correct but contradictory theories. Apparently there can, Khalees said. At least until someone proves otherwise. And the humans have working technology based on their theory. It's hard to argue with results. Instantaneous transportation, Tarlok muttered. It violates everything we know about energy requirements, spatial displacement, temporal consistency. Yes, agreed Khalees. It does, according to established galactic science. And yet, there they are, popping back and forth to Earth like it's nothing more complicated than walking through a doorway. Tarlok watched as a Thelian mathematician threw up all 4 of his arms in despair and stormed from the chamber. The human with the facial hair just shook his head and adjusted something in the equations, causing several other scientists to cry out in protest. If they can do this, Tarlok said slowly, if they can simply appear anywhere in space they choose. Now you're seeing the real issue, Khalees said. They're defenseless, Tarlok concluded. If they have no ships, they have no fleet, no military capacity. They're completely vulnerable to any species with aggressive intentions. Khalees made a strange sound that Tarlok couldn't interpret. That's an interesting conclusion. Would you like to see how the Council has addressed that concern? Before Tarlok could answer, Khalees was already moving, guiding him away from the scientific chaos and deeper into the administrative complex. They passed through several security checkpoints where Khalees' credentials were scrutinized with unusual thoroughness. Finally, they entered a dimly lit circular room. The walls were lined with monitoring stations, each attended by personnel from different species. The center of the room was dominated by a massive holographic display showing a star system Tarlok immediately recognized as Sol, the human home system. What he didn't immediately comprehend was the network of symbols surrounding it. "What am I looking at?" he asked. A gruff voice answered from behind him. "The containment grid." Tarlok turned to find himself face to face with General Dravix of the Uldarian Defense Force, one of the most respected military minds in the galaxy. "Containment?" Tarlok repeated. "You've quarantined Earth?" The general's facial plates shifted in what might have been amusement. "Not exactly. This isn't to keep them in. It's to keep others out." Tarlok looked back at the display, now recognizing the symbols for cloaked monitoring stations, automated defense platforms, and patrol routes of Council peacekeeping vessels. "I don't understand," he admitted. "If humans have no fleet, why would they need this level of protection?" "They didn't request it," General Dravix said. "We implemented it unilaterally after the Krell incident." "I'm not familiar with any Krell incident," Tarlok said. General Dravix and Khalees exchanged glances. "Approximately 20 standard years ago," Khalees explained, "the Krell Dominion sent a diplomatic mission to Earth. During formal negotiations, the Krell ambassador made some unfortunate remarks regarding humanity's lack of traditional space defense capabilities." "Unfortunate how?" He suggested, General Dravix continued, "that without a proper fleet, Earth would make an easy conquest for any civilization with modest military capacity. He implied the Krell might one day consider such action if humans didn't agree to favorable trade terms. A standard intimidation tactic, Tarlok noted. "Indeed," said the general, "except for what happened next." "Which was—" The human negotiator smiled, excused herself for 5 minutes, and returned with a small device. She activated it, displaying a hologram showing the inside of the Krell High Commander's private residence on their homeworld, specifically his food preparation area. Tarlok's breathing sacs constricted. "That's impossible. The Krell homeworld is 15 light-years from Earth." "Yes," Khalees said. "It is." The human informed the Krell ambassador, General Dravix continued, that they could, and I quote, "deliver a nuclear warhead to any kitchen in your civilization if provoked." She then provided exact details about the High Commander's daily routine that could only be known through direct observation. Tarlok felt suddenly cold. They were bluffing. They must have been. "Perhaps," said the general. The Krell chose not to test that hypothesis. They signed a most favorable trade agreement in Earth's history the following day, and have since become one of humanity's strongest advocates in the Council. Tarlok stared at the holographic display, now seeing the containment grid in an entirely new light. This isn't for their protection. It's for everyone else's. As a precaution, Khalees clarified. Humans have shown no aggressive tendencies, but their capabilities are unsettling to many council members. If they can transport themselves instantly across interstellar distances, Tarlok reasoned, they could theoretically transport anything. Weapons, explosives, biological agents. "Now you understand why Earth's membership application was fast-tracked," General Dravix said. "Better to have them bound by council laws and treaties than left to develop independently." "And they agreed to this?" Tarlok gestured at the containment grid. "They're aware of it," Khalees said. "They find it amusing." "Amusing?" "Their system is surrounded by the most sophisticated monitoring network in council space, and they find it amusing. They understand the fear behind it," General Dravix said. "But from their perspective, if they wanted to do harm, no defense grid could stop them. Hence their amusement." Tarlok stood in silence, staring at the holographic representation of Earth's solar system. His mind raced with implications, recalculating everything he thought he knew about interstellar power dynamics. "One more question," he finally said. "If humans can transport themselves anywhere instantly, Why do they bother with diplomatic protocols at all? Why maintain an embassy here? Why participate in council procedures? Cully's facial membranes rippled in that now familiar expression of amusement. That's the most interesting part, in my opinion. They genuinely want to be part of the galactic community. They value the exchange of ideas, cultures, and sciences, even when those exchanges become heated. Like the gravity debate we witnessed, Tarlok said. Exactly. Humans could simply keep their technology to themselves, appearing and disappearing at will, taking whatever knowledge or resources they wanted. Instead, they choose to engage, to share, to participate in the bureaucracy and compromise that council membership entails. That makes no strategic sense, Tarlok protested. From a purely military perspective, perhaps not, General Dravix conceded. But consider this. In the 20 years since the Krell incident, human scientific and cultural exchange has accelerated technological development across 17 different civilizations. They're different. Perspective has proven valuable. Tarlok looked back at the containment grid one last time before Kulis guided him from the monitoring station. They walked in silence for several minutes, Tarlok's mind still struggling to assimilate everything he'd learned. I've served as diplomatic liaison to 12 different species, Kulis said eventually. Each has its unique perspectives and contributions. But humans are different in a fundamental way. Because they can teleport? No, because they think differently. Their entire scientific development took a path no other council civilization followed. While 77 advanced species all reached essentially the same conclusions about fundamental physics, humans went in an entirely different direction. But how? Why? Kulis shrugged, a gesture they'd clearly adopted from humans. No one knows for certain. Some theorize it's because their planet has such extreme environmental diversity, forcing adaptability. Others suggest it's their unusually fragmented social development, with thousands of separate cultures evolving in isolation, then cross-pollinating ideas. A few even propose it's the result of their exceptionally violent history, that having survived so many near-extinction events, their collective thinking evolved to see beyond conventional boundaries. They had arrived back at Tarlok's assigned quarters. Kulis paused at the entrance. Whatever the reason, humans remind us of something many civilizations forget once they achieve interstellar capacity. There's always another way to look at the universe. Tarlok considered this as his door slid open. My formal duties begin tomorrow. Will I be expected to interact with human representatives? Almost certainly. Earth currently holds a particular interest in enhanced trade relations with the Varnese Confederation. I see. Tarlok hesitated. I would appreciate any additional information you could provide about human cultural norms and diplomatic expectations. I find myself inadequately prepared. Kulis' expression shifted to something Tarlok couldn't quite interpret. I can arrange for relevant data to be sent to your quarters. But if I may offer a suggestion, speak with them directly. Observe them. Most importantly, question your assumptions when dealing with humans. Because they can appear in my kitchen with nuclear weapons? Tarlok asked dryly. Because they challenge the very foundations of what we consider possible, Kulis corrected. And that, Ambassador, is both their greatest gift and most troubling quality. After Kulis departed, Tarlok spent hours reviewing the official council documentation on human integration. The files were simultaneously extensive and frustratingly vague on key technological details. Multiple sections referenced proprietary quantum transportation theory without elaboration. Sleep eluded him that night. The image of Dr. Cruz vanishing in purple light kept replaying in his mind, along with the chaos of the scientific debate and the ominous containment grid surrounding Earth. The next morning, Tarlok presented his credentials to the council in a brief, formal ceremony. As Kulis had predicted, he was immediately approached by a human representative, a tall figure with dark skin and striking gray eyes. Ambassador Tarlok, the human said, extending a hand in what Tarlok recognized as their traditional greeting gesture. I'm Dr. Marcus Way, Earth's scientific liaison. I understand you have a particular interest in quantum field harmonics. We'd be delighted to discuss potential research collaboration. I, yes, Tarlok managed, carefully matching the human's hand gesture. Though I confess my understanding may differ significantly from yours. Dr. Wei smiled. Different perspectives are precisely what make collaboration valuable. Wouldn't you agree? Perhaps you'd join me for a meal? Our culinary team has prepared several dishes modified for Varney's biochemistry. That would be acceptable, Tarlok said, falling back on diplomatic protocol while his mind raced. I am curious about many aspects of human scientific development. Excellent. And afterward, if you're interested, I could show you our transportation hub. We've just established a direct link to your homeworld. The journey takes approximately 3 seconds now. Tarlok's dorsal ridges flexed involuntarily in shock. You've created a transportation link to Varney's Prime? Without consulting our scientific authorities? Dr. Wei's expression shifted to one of concern. The project was approved by your Central Scientific Directorate 6 standard months ago. Is there some issue I'm unaware of? No, Tarlok said quickly, making a mental note to access the relevant records as soon as possible. I've been in transit. My information may be outdated. Of course, interstellar communication can be so cumbersome when relying on traditional channels. The human smiled again. That's another area where our technology offers significant advantages. We've developed a quantum entanglement communication system that allows instantaneous transmission regardless of distance. Like your transportation technology, Tarlok observed. Based on the same principles, yes. Though the energy requirements for information transfer are substantially lower than for physical transportation. Tarlok followed the human through the council complex, listening as Dr. Wei explained various research initiatives with infectious enthusiasm. Despite himself, Tarlok found his scientific curiosity overriding his diplomatic caution. These principles you mention, he ventured. They contradict established understanding of quantum mechanics as unified by the Thelian-Varney's equations. Only if you accept the fundamental assumptions those equations are built upon, Dr. Wei replied. Specifically, the presumption that time progression is a constant rather than a variable function of quantum state. Time is constant, Tarlok said automatically, then paused. At least, that's what every civilization in the Council has independently verified. Every Council civilization followed remarkably similar paths of scientific discovery, Dr. Wei noted, each building upon the same core principles established at early stages of their development. But what if those initial principles contained a fundamental oversight? What if there was another path entirely? Before Tarlok could respond, they entered an expansive dining area where representatives of dozens of species mingled. Dr. Wei was immediately hailed by a group of Meridian scientists, the same ones who had been arguing so vehemently in the research chamber the previous day. To Tarlok's astonishment, the Meridians greeted the human warmly, with none of the hostility he had witnessed during the scientific debate. You see, said a familiar voice beside him, that's what makes them truly dangerous. Tarlok turned to find Kulis watching the interaction. What do you mean? They can fundamentally disagree with you about the nature of reality itself, argue passionately against your most cherished scientific principles, and then join you for a meal as if it were nothing more than an invigorating mental exercise. I don't understand. For humans, disagreement isn't personal. They can separate scientific debate from diplomatic relations in a way many species find difficult. They genuinely enjoy the clash of ideas. Tarlok watched as Dr. Wei laughed at something a Meridian said. The group now engaged in animated conversation. Yesterday, those same Meridians were practically threatening violence over human quantum theories, Tarlok noted. And today they're discussing cultural exchange programs, Kulis confirmed. Humans call it compartmentalization. Most species find it unsettling, but it makes them exceptionally effective diplomats. Throughout the meal that followed, Tarlok observed the humans present with new attention. They moved through the complex social dynamics of the gathering with remarkable ease, adapting their communication styles to each species they encountered. When Dr. Wei returned to continue their conversation, Tarlok found himself asking the question that had been troubling him most. If your people can travel anywhere instantly, Why maintain any physical presence here at all? Why not simply appear when needed for specific functions? Dr. Wei considered this thoughtfully. Relationship building requires presence, ambassador. We could certainly operate that way, but it would undermine the trust we're trying to establish. Many species already find our transportation technology disturbing. Imagine how they would react if humans were constantly appearing and disappearing without warning. So, it's a diplomatic concession, Tarlok suggested. It's respect, Dr. Wei corrected. We understand our abilities make others uncomfortable. By maintaining a permanent presence and following established protocols, we demonstrate our commitment to integration rather than disruption. After the meal, true to his word, Dr. Wei led Tarlok to the human transportation hub. Unlike the small chamber where he had observed Dr. Cruz's departure, this was a large, well-appointed facility with multiple platforms and a team of human technicians monitoring various instruments. Each platform is calibrated for a specific destination, Dr. Wei explained. While we can't theoretically transport to any location, established links require significantly less energy and computational resources. Tarlok stared at the nearest platform, where a human had just materialized in a flash of purple light. The newcomer stepped off the platform, checked something on his wrist device, and proceeded out of the facility without any sign of disorientation. The implications for military applications are, Tarlok began, then stopped himself. Concerning? Dr. Wei suggested. We understand that perspective. It's why we've agreed to considerable oversight of our transportation network and have voluntarily submitted to the Council's containment protocols. You know about those? Of course. We helped design several components. Varney sensor technology is particularly effective at detecting quantum fluctuations, so we incorporated it into the monitoring grid. Tarlok tried to assimilate this information. My government contributed to the system designed to monitor yours? Monitor isn't quite the right word. It's more like a buffer zone to prevent misunderstandings. And yes, 12 council species contributed technology, including yours. Tarlok watched as another human vanished from a nearby platform. How many of these transportation hubs exist? On Earth? Hundreds. Throughout council space? Currently 27, with 15 more planned for the coming year. Each requires approval from the host government, of course. And if approval were denied? Dr. Wei looked at him directly. Then we wouldn't build there. Ambassador, I sense your concern, but I want to be clear. We have no interest in imposing our presence where it's unwelcome. Our technology gives us options, not imperatives. Later that day, Tarlok sent a lengthy report to the Varney Central Directorate, detailing everything he had observed about human transportation technology and its implications. He received an almost immediate response, transmitted, he noted with irony, via the new quantum entanglement communication system Dr. Wei had mentioned. The directive was clear: cultivate closer relations with human representatives, particularly regarding scientific exchange. Facilitate upcoming joint research initiatives. And most importantly, ensure Varney's participation in all council oversight of human technological development. That evening, Tarlok stood at the viewing portal in his quarters, looking out at the sprawling complex that housed the Intergalactic Council. Somewhere in that elaborate network of structures, humans were quietly revolutionizing the fundamental understanding of physics that had united 87 civilizations. A chime announced Kuli's arrival for their scheduled briefing on the next day's diplomatic agenda. Have you adjusted your perspective? The Equari asked without preamble. Somewhat, Tarlok admitted, though I still find much of this difficult to reconcile with established science. Perhaps the difficulty lies in the term established, Kuli suggested. The foundations of Council's scientific consensus were established millennia ago. Humans are simply reminding us that foundations can be rebuilt. At considerable risk, Tarlok noted. Their approach to quantum mechanics could have catastrophic consequences if their calculations are even slightly incorrect. And yet, they teleport across the galaxy with the casual confidence of someone stepping through a doorway. Kulis moved to stand beside him at the viewing portal. Do you know what I find most remarkable about humans? Their complete disregard for conventional scientific wisdom, their simultaneous capacity for revolutionary thinking and mundane concerns. Cullis gestured toward a distant section of the complex. Dr. Cruz, who we observed yesterday, after teleporting halfway across the galaxy, she spent her evening participating in a human social activity called fantasy football with colleagues on Earth. They argued about sporting statistics while consuming fermented grain beverages. Tarlok's tertiary eyelids blinked rapidly. You're suggesting they don't recognize the significance of their own technology? Oh, they recognize it. They simply don't allow it to overwhelm their enjoyment of ordinary life. Cullis turned from the portal, which makes them unique among space-faring civilizations. Every other council member treats interstellar travel as a profound achievement requiring solemn respect. Humans treat it like plumbing, useful infrastructure that enables the things they actually care about, which are connection, exchange, experience. They've solved the problems of distance and time not to dominate, but to remove barriers to what truly interests them, relationships. Tarlok considered this perspective against everything he had observed. General Dravix implied they could be an existential threat to the Council. They could be, Cullis agreed. Any species with their capabilities could, but they choose not to be, which is far more significant than the capabilities themselves. Later that night, unable to sleep once again, Tarlok accessed the newly established direct communication link to Varney's Prime. The quantum entanglement system was remarkably simple to operate, with none of the complex calibrations required for traditional interstellar communication. Within moments, he was speaking with the chief scientific advisor as if they were in the same room, despite the 48 light-years separating them. The human quantum transportation theory has been partially verified by our preliminary tests, the advisor informed him. Though we've only succeeded in transporting subatomic particles thus far, the results are promising. You believe their method is viable? Tarlok asked. More than viable. It renders our entire approach to interstellar travel obsolete. The advisor's tone held a mixture of scientific excitement and cultural dismay. 8 centuries of Varney's propulsion development, rendered antiquated in a single moment. How are the theoretical harmonics guilds responding? With the expected resistance. 3 have already declared human quantum theory blasphemous to the scientific orthodoxy. 2 others are frantically revising the foundational text to accommodate the new data. In your assessment? Tarlok pressed. The advisor was silent for a moment. My personal assessment, off the official record? Yes. We've been traveling in circles while humans found a straight line. Their different evolutionary path led them to question assumptions we never thought to examine. It's simultaneously humbling and exhilarating. After ending the communication, Tarlok returned to the viewing portal. The lights of the council complex glittered against the backdrop of stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, surrounded by the most sophisticated monitoring system ever devised, containing a species that could render it completely useless on a whim. And yet, they chose to engage, to participate, to follow protocols they could easily ignore. They debated quantum mechanics by day and discussed sports by night. They possessed technology that made ships obsolete, yet politely requested permission to establish transportation hubs. Tarlok realized he had been asking the wrong question. The issue wasn't how humans had developed such technology, or even what they might do with it. The real question was what it revealed about all the other council species, including his own. For millennia, 87 civilizations had followed essentially the same path of scientific discovery, each reinforcing the other's fundamental assumptions. They had built an interstellar community based on shared understanding of physics, mathematics, and cosmology. And then humans arrived, having taken a completely different path to the same destination, forcing everyone to confront a disturbing possibility. What other paths might exist that no one had considered? Tarlok decided then that he would study humans more closely, not to monitor or contain them, but to learn from them. Not because they could teleport or because they might pose a threat, but because they thought differently. They didn't need ships. They didn't need weapons. They just needed an idea, and the entire universe changed.